Thank you to Danny Boy, The Sainted Jester, Vanessa Tarbuck, WRC Seb, Paul Holkar Wallace, Richard Tock and Alex Scott for becoming new members of the Kinetic Rugby League channel. Content on this channel will continue to be free, but if you'd like to become a member and support the work that I do, you can do for as little as £1 per month. Also, make sure you stop by the live streams at the weekend during Super League and sometimes NRL games and become part of a growing community and positive group of fans. And let me know in the comments if there's any new content you'd like me to start posting. Let's crack on with the video. Now we move on to the Super League Round 8 Power Rankings after what was a very spicy Rivals round. So let's get started with 12th place. Keeping their place at the bottom of the pile this week are the Huddersfield Giants, still having to deal with a ridiculous amount of squad changes and never really being able to settle. Their defensive efforts in the first half versus Leeds weren't too shabby, but in possession they still look way off most teams in Super League. And I think at full strength, they do have a squad that can do a bit of damage, but for now, with all the changes they need to make, the lack of cohesion as an offensive and defensive unit, they keep hold of that number 12 spot. On to 11th place, and moving down one this week, I have the Salford Red Devils. Now, I'm not too sure what I can say at this point that either hasn't already been said or hasn't been thought of by anyone else. As a club, they're an absolute mess right now, but the guys that put their bodies on the line each week and the guys that are grinding out in training are constantly deserving of praise and recognition. And I think that's all that needs to be said right now. So, Salford Red Devils in 11th. Moving up one this week into 10th place, we have the mighty Castleford Tigers, who reached into their backsides and pulled out one of those gritty performances we get every few months. Great work through the middle versus Wakey, great defensive scramble, quick in possession, professional performance for the most part. Now, despite a loss, that squad and fans should be very proud of that effort. And to be honest, they were deserving of a win for the majority of that game at the weekend. And can we just appreciate for a second Tex Hoy? Because this isn't the first time he's created chances from nothing in possession and pulled off some incredible try-saving tackles to keep Castleford in a game. I do not know where Cass would be without him this season. Then we move on to 9th place, and keeping their spot I have Catalans Dragons. Basically repeating what I've said for the past few weeks, the defence is looking stronger and the attack is creating more chances and therefore scoring more points. Now, I'm well aware of the phrase, you can only play what's in front of you. But that's kind of why I can't really move them up at the moment. In the last 5 games, they've had one solid effort versus Saints, a lacklustre win versus Salford in the Cup, and then 3 comfortable wins against the 3 worst teams in the competition. So, fair play to them on the visible improvements and the effort versus Saints, but without more tests, I can't move them anywhere yet. But with Wakefield, Leigh, Hull KR Saints and Wigan as their next 5, we should know exactly what kind of team they are by the end of that run. Moving on to 8th place and moving down one, I have Warrington Wolves. They are one of a few teams that's dealing with a lot of changes to their squad over the past few weeks, and without George Williams, who's out for another 8 to 10 weeks, there was a clear disconnect in possession. Danny Walker was given the number 6 role, who certainly did his best, but it seemed to me that a lot of the lads around him looked uncomfortable and unsure whether to trust Walker's direction in that role. Warrington looked very shaky defensively on the edges again, and then Sneed and Dufty looked a little unsure of each other in attack. I was optimistic about Walker playing at number 6, but with Leyland and Ratchford both available, neither being picked, I think Sam Burgess possibly made the wrong call there. There were some decent signs again with the kicking game and a few other areas here and there, but my biggest concern as a Wire fan right now is just uncertainty in what we're going to get on a week-to-week basis from this team. On to 7th place now, and moving up one, I have Leigh Leopards. Now, their performance versus Warrington was solid. There was strong carries, quick play the balls, fast-paced attack, clear intent and execution for the most part, and they looked firmly in control for the first half. They could have had some more points, if not for some checks for obstruction and grounding from the video referee, which I do think were the right calls at the time. But even without getting those points, they still created those opportunities in the first place, which is a good sign. They maybe allowed a few too many line breaks, but overall looked fine, and they're now getting back-to-back Super League wins compared to Wire's back-to-back losses, so therefore a swap between those two seems fair. Next up, taking a step down this week, I have Wakefield Trinity in 6th place. They lost 2 on the bounce going into their round 8 matchup versus Cass, and it probably should have ended up being 3 on the bounce if you look at the first hour or so at the weekend. Now, I can fully appreciate the difficulties Wakey are dealing with at the moment, as they're another team with a lot of changes as well in a lot of areas, but execution was off in attack at times for a lot of that game, and they failed to pin a team back that has looked fairly easy to pin back in most weeks. Now, the end result and final 15 minutes shows the character of this team, staying in games, never quitting, with some individuals showing up in key moments. Taking 5th spot off Wakefield and moving up one this week, I have Leeds Rhinos. Now, the same argument I made for Catalans could be applied to Leeds as well, with 2 comfortable wins in back-to-back weeks versus teams in the bottom 3. But I'm still looking at form slightly beyond that, with solid defensive efforts in all comps, as far back as even the Catalans game. Now, their attack still has some slow starts. Jake Connor is really helping to keep this Leeds attack effective enough, but their defence hasn't been talked about enough, and they are literally the 3rd best defensive side in Super League. Moving on to the top 4, and moving down one, I have St Helens. Now, you can tell they're lacking, let's say, a killer instinct and need a little more sting in their attack, but they were a tough team for Wigan to break down at times. Now, George Whitby did a brilliant job at number 7, looking comfortable in the role, taking on the typical responsibility of a number 7, and not being afraid to engage the line and try to create something here and there. Now, the forwards and defence will continue to be their best asset for now, but improvements are needed in attack to be able to back up the good work defensively that they're currently producing. On to 3rd place now, and moving up one, I have Hull FC. My goodness, what an effort. They have my respect for that display under those circumstances, and I don't think it's a stretch to say that they earned the respect of a few Hull KR fans as well. Now, they lost Cade Cuss to a red card after 16 minutes, and for the rest of the game, did their best to compete through the middle. They scrambled their arses off defensively to limit Hull KR's points. They looked effective in possession and put points on the board, and actually turned what could have easily been a walkover into a winnable game, late into the game as well. Are they a perfect team? Absolutely not. But what they are is a team that you must take seriously. Next up, 2nd place, and staying in 2nd, I have Hull Kingston Rovers. Now, we didn't see their cleanest or most dangerous performance of the season versus Hull FC, and given they had an extra man for 64 minutes roughly, I was expecting to see a much more comfortable scoreline as we got later on into the game. That being said, this was a Hull derby, so it was intense, and sometimes a game being a derby tells you everything you need to know when it comes to asking why the game wasn't as straightforward as you'd expect for the Robins. They're still an incredibly effective team in attack. They wear teams down through the middle over 80 minutes, and their defence is annoyingly stout. They aren't the type of team to be shaken after a loss or performance that's below their usual standard, but very simply, nobody wants to play them, and they stay in 2nd in my power rankings. Finally, we move on to 1st place, and still in 1st, I have Wigan Warriors. On the negative side of things, their ill discipline and errors in possession just kept adding up. It was just way too much. They were quite poor in those areas, and they were often gifting Saints great field position, but they were hardly phased defensively on their own goal line, to be fair. Now, they didn't allow too many easy line breaks as well, and they competed very well through the middle, which is to be expected. It was looking a little scary for them at one point, late on into the game, but as we've come to learn with Wigan, the likes of Field, French, Smith and Leeming will find a way to make something happen from nothing and force teams to be perfect in order to beat Wigan, even when they aren't perfect themselves. So Wigan stay in 1st place. So there you have my Super League Round 8 power rankings. If you guys have your own list, please do let me know in the comments section down below. Make sure you answer the Rugby League fan question that I pinned to the comments as well. But if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like. It does help to get the video out there to more people. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with more Rugby League content. And also, if you'd like to become a member and support the work that I do, you can do for as little as £1 a month. Just click the join button below this video. But that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.